Christine, as you indicated in the lead-in to this piece, Congressman Schiff has urged the White House to share all the documents he saw here today at the White House with the entire House Intelligence Committee. There's no clear signal from the White House yet whether that will be done. But when I asked at today's briefing if the White House would respect a request from the Senate Intelligence Committee that the information not be transmitted to it from this White House, but from the exact intelligence agencies that collected it originally, Sean Spicer, the White House press secretary, said he could not say if that would happen, and that request is being reviewed by the White House counsel's office.
Major, back to what you mentioned in your report regarding the tweet that the president sent out regarding to Flynn. Is it unusual for a sitting president to weigh in publicly like this?
It's very unusual because presidents know they are at the top of the American government, and they have supervisorial power over the Justice Department. The Justice Department, through the Attorney General, reports to the president. So anything a president says, whether it's on Twitter or in any other venue, could be construed as creating an atmosphere around a sensitive legal decision, which immunity for any witness would certainly be. And that's why I asked the president what his intentions were with that tweet. Was he trying to send a signal to the FBI or to the Justice Department? Because saying someone who used to work for him, who nevertheless was fired, should obtain immunity and should seek it, should ask for it, does carry with it at least some implication that he's justified to seek immunity and should probably get it. Well, who would make that decision? The Justice Department or Congress? And in either case, it's highly unusual for a president to offer any opinion on something that is that legally sensitive and could have as many legal ramifications if, in fact, and it's a huge if, there is a prosecution some point down in the future.
So the White House doesn't really seem to be worried, at least that's what they're saying, about Flynn's testimony. So what's the motivation to pursue this protection?
Well, from the White House's perspective, and we can only go from the public utterances of the press secretary today because the rest of this White House is pretty closed mouth about Michael Flynn and what he will or won't do. But the press secretary, Sean Spicer, was asked, does the president fear, does anyone fear that either the president himself or anyone who works for him could be harmed or damaged by what Michael Flynn might testify about? One word answer from Sean Spicer: no. And so the White House characterizes the immunity request from Michael Flynn through his attorney as the standard procedure that anyone who is testifying might want to assert if they feared, as was said by Michael Flynn's attorney, unfair prosecution. Because the White House does agree with this general narrative, which it has largely been trying to drive and shape, that this entire inquiry into Russian involvement in the 2016 election and the Trump campaign is invalid, has no underlying legitimacy, and, in the president's words, is a witch hunt. So in that context, the White House says, well, it's appropriate for Flynn to seek immunity. Not necessarily that he should shield himself from potential or successful prosecution. But that's part of the narrative that this White House is trying to generate, that the investigation itself doesn't have any legitimacy, even though the FBI is pursuing it, the House Intelligence Committee is pursuing it, and the Senate Intelligence Committee is pursuing it. Those three entities, whatever this White House says, do provide legitimacy that the questions here are unresolved, real, and must be answered.
So those documents, Major, my last question, regarding Congressman Nunes, the ones that he initially saw, and now Congressman Schiff has now seen, as he released in a statement today. Where do we go from here regarding those documents? I mean,
it's an important question because Congressman Schiff, the ranking Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, essentially came over to the White House, and by the way, he had a very brief meeting with the president while he was here, described as cordial. I think that's incidental to his trip over here in every shape and form. A quick meeting with the president is not why he came over here. Congressman Schiff wanted to see the information. But back to the point I made when we first started this conversation, Christine, and I think for our viewers it's important to think about this. The Senate Intelligence Committee, with Republican and Democrat chairmen working in collaboration, have said, look, viewing this information at the White House is unacceptable because we don't know where it came from. And what we want is the original intelligence from the original agency so we can evaluate it by itself, not at the White House or with any White House handling of it, and then ask the relevant agencies what it means, what the context around it is, and do its own investigation. That's a very significant request from the Senate Intelligence Committee. The White House will only say it's reviewing that. And I asked Sean Spicer today, do you find anything about that request that is upsetting or out of bounds? Sean Spicer would not answer that. He would only say the White House counsel's office is reviewing it, which at least indicates the White House isn't sure if it's going to do this. And that could be somewhere where another clash between the branch of government and Congress in its oversight responsibilities clashes with this White House about not only what these documents purport to say, but where they came from, how they were collected, and which agency collected them in the first place.
And unfortunately, adding another layer to all of this. All right, Major Garrett at the White House for us. Thanks, Major.
Sure.